Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Before we start this session, I thought I'd have a moment of silence and pay respect to one for our Brockton native, Brockton, Mass, Al Davis. Very sad. One of the pioneers for the founding of the National Football League. Did wonders with Oakland, and a lot of people have been really kind of joking, oh, he's dead, ha ha ha. Listen, gotta give the man his respect. He did what he did. It's because of him we all love our Sundays. There's no other way to look at it. Amen. Another gentleman who honestly we have to pay respect for because he is on the Billionaire Walk of Fame in Boston, Mass, possibly Cambridge, I'm not too sure about it. Anyways, we'll get into that. Stephen Jobs. Without him, we would be able to check our fantasy scores. You know, it's like, that's a pioneer of technology right there. I mean, if they do another A&E 100 greatest pioneers, well, you got to give it to them. You don't. It's like Bill Gates, you already had your moment of glory. Steve Jobs, thank you.
Hey, fought the fight, man.
Fought the fight. 6 years.
Let's get more.
Keep it on, 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 keep.
My name is Mike, Medford, Mass, work in Cambridge. I know this is fantasy football, but this gentleman, we went to a great hockey game today. And my Patriots jersey's in the dryer, so I kind of, you know, I had to compensate somehow. So.
It's all right, man.
It's all right, man.
It's all right. I wanted to wear the throwback today. And Terry, I got the better one.
No further ado, this is the show about football, not about jerseys. Let's go with the introductions.
That's right.
My name is Jayare. I'm one of the co-hosts of the show.
That's right. My name is Mike. I don't fit in with the cast today, but my sports knowledge is going to make up for the white tee. I promise you that.
My name is Jeff. We're in the throwback. And we're ready to get into some football. And we're going to start off. Mike, why don't you tell us what we're going to get into?
Yes, I wanted to break down I wanted to look at the tech, since we are talking about Al Davis, I want to talk about the Texans and Raiders game.
All right, let's do it. And so the question is, could the Raiders continue playing, even though this big depth guy basically took his NFL to new heights? Was it going to affect their performance? And guys, it did not affect their performance. They could have played a lot better, especially if you look at McFadden right now. Yesterday's game really didn't outline how his performance week in, week out has been in general, but he still had a decent game. He matched up in rushing yards at least about to Arian Foster, so it is kind of a wash at this point to even sit there and compare Foster and McFadden. In the meantime, saying that all, Arian Foster, he did have more receiving yards, obviously. McFadden's not that all-around back like Foster is. Some people would consider too from the Texans, of course, Matt Schaub. If you got him, you need to keep him going. They're going hot right now. The Texans are going hot.
It was an ugly win, but it was a game that Al Davis would have been proud of. The Raiders went out, they were in a slugfest with the Texans, but in the end of the game, they pulled it out. He hit Hayward Bay on a lot of big plays. I believe it was 7 catches for 99 yards and the TDs. It looks like he's starting to come into his own right now. And the Raiders defense definitely stepped up big behind Richard Seymour and Michael Huff, the safety.
We have to take the biggest positive for the Raiders out of this game, other than obviously completing a good win, a very emotional win, which I think really drove them to complete the whole football game and play total football. This Darius Hayward Bay is finally settling in to the #1 receiver, the Al Davis. Little known fact, Al Davis overrode everybody during the draft to make sure the Raiders got Hayward Bay, and it seems like he's finally settling into that #1 role. That's really good for not only McFadden and Jason Campbell, but the defense. Now the game doesn't have to rest on big Richard Seymour's shoulders every single week. And yeah, I mean, Hayward Bay, back-to-back 99-yard game, 99-plus yard games, a few touchdowns in the mix. It seems like the Raiders really got their things figured out there.
I want to talk about the Jets and the Pats game.
Yes,
break this down. I really
definitely.
had a great time watching this game.
It was a great game, you know. I don't know about you guys, but I was happy to see the Pats finally get back to their ground and pound way of running the ball. They just handed the ball off to Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, and he carried the team to a victory. He rushed for 132 yards with 2 rushing TDs against a solid Jets run defense. And I know we were all on the Stephen Ridley bandwagon last week after his great performance against Oakland, but Green Ellis showed everyone that guess what? He's not done yet. He's still that 1,000-yard back from last season with 10 TDs. He's still got it in him. And with a healthy Green Ellis getting back to his old way of playing, the Patriots are going to go a long way. What they need to do, though, is shore up their pass rush. They weren't able to get too much pressure on Mark Sanchez. They only recorded 2 sacks. One came in garbage time at the end of the game.
Look at it this way. Belichick and company took a look at the Jets, took a look at Mark Sanchez's performance as over the last few weeks, and saw that it wasn't too great. So the first thing I saw that the Patriots were doing was taking away the Jets' run game. Now, Rex Ryan earlier in the week said they were going to get back to the ground and pound with Sean Green and Daniel Tomlinson. Belichick laid his finger because Green and Tomlinson combined for 96 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, that's not ground and pound. So the Patriots left the game up to Sanchez, and Sanchez, as usual, could not come through, get the Jets to win. Tom Brady, and of course, Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis came through, pounded away the victory. I'd like to make this a quick little note. Aaron Hernandez coming back, freed up Deion Branch.
Yes.
Deion Branch was able to become an effective receiver once again.
Yeah, it was strategic. It was all strategy in this game. Nobody was willing to make any mistakes. You know, Tom Brady don't like to lose. No matter, when Hernandez missed that pass in the end zone, clearly see it in Tom's face. We've always known that. Tom Brady's the type of dude, he can play a damn video game. If he loses, he'll throw the remote. That's how Tom is, and you can definitely see that. Both teams weren't willing to make any mistakes whatsoever. Con was cautious. Rex Ryan he kept his mouth shut this time. Another team that I'm falling in love with. Mr. Ryan Fitzpatrick, God bless you, man. I want to talk about Fitzy.
Another local. From
Harvard product.
And I want to talk about Buffalo-Philly game.
All right,
great game.
I'm going to take that into it, and then this is the classic team on the downfall versus an uprising team. The Buffalo Bills being the uprising team, and the Philadelphia Eagles being the team finding themselves in the middle of a lot of controversy. Let's start off with the quarterbacks. We got Michael Vick throwing 4 interceptions. Now, I know what everyone's saying here. Michael Vick not living up to his contract. Michael Vick not the answer at quarterback. But I'm going to have to disagree with all the critics out there. Michael Vick went 26 for 40 for 315 yards.
Yeah.
Rushed 5 times for 90 yards. Clips Randall Cunningham at the all-time quarterback rushing record. Applause for that.
Congratulations.
But Michael Vick has no offensive line. He's getting drilled every time he goes to throw almost. Michael Vick's receivers aren't working for him. I don't see the effort every single throw. I see a lot of tip passes, which a lot of them led to interceptions. A lot of them led to third and longs turning into 4th downs. And you just can't have that for a guy like Michael Vick. Now, we go on to Ryan Fitzpatrick, 21 for 27, 193 yards. Not the superstar fantasy quarterback, but you know what? He managed the game, and he managed his team to the win. We'll move on to the running game, going on to Fred Jackson, who I think is one of the most underrated running backs in fantasy football this year. 6 receiving yards for 85 yards. 6 receiving receptions for 85 yards. He got 6 looks from Ryan Fitzpatrick. 26 rushing attempts for 111 yards, 1 touchdown, his longest for 22 yards. That tells me that the Bills aren't looking for the home run. They're looking to control the chains, which means they're looking to control the game. I think Philly really has a problem in the locker room. Everyone is blaming Vic, but I don't see Vic being the problem. I see coaching, I see offensive line, I see undisciplined receivers, I see unbalanced. You can't put the game on Vic.
Something I really noticed when I was reading up on the game recap in general, something I really noticed that's a huge difference between these 2 teams right now. Buffalo, I just looked at the interception comparison, and right now Philly just has 1 interception in this game versus the 4 interceptions and the pick 6 that Buffalo got. That's not good for Philly because they spent their whole payroll, like Jeff mentioned last week, they spent their whole payroll on Hasselblad. They traded for Rogers Cromartie. They even kept Samuel to revamp that green, to however many quarterbacks and safeties you're going to put on the field, they really stack that area of the defense, and in the meantime, that defense, that area specifically has not done anything.
Going into this matchup with the Bills and the Eagles, I was under the impression that Andy Reid was going to get his team to come together and play as a team, to get his offensive line to come together and play as one solid unit. But they disappointed not just me, but obviously everyone in Philly. Michael Vick isn't the problem with the team, but his role on the team isn't what it used to be. He's turned into more of a running back instead of a quarterback. The pocket's not holding up for him. He has to move around a lot more. When he moves around, he's not as accurate as he is when he's standing still in the pocket without any pressure on him. I know last week I picked the Eagles to dominate the Bills, and they definitely didn't come through for me. Made me look a little stupid there on that pick.
Yeah, we all make mistakes.
We all make mistakes.
All right, man.
Back again, ladies and gentlemen. Before we get working on the bye weeks on the board, I want to give credit to one man that's here, Bruce, our cameraman.
Bruce,
Never on the screen. Get in front of the camera.
Bruce, get in front of the camera.
Come on. Bruce, great cameraman.
Thanks
It's like,
so much, man.
It's like, we're a team. We're a teamwork. I mean, that's
Great working with you, Bruce.
Thank you. We're a team. It's like, come on. It's like, oh,
This guy
now you know who
is
the
the
cameraman is.
Mexican working hard. That's what he is.
I just want to give a quick shout out to a couple people real quick. Walter, Oscar, and Sear, giving you your shout out. Be happy.
Giving a shout out to Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. I love you guys.
This is the bye week board. And Jesus Christ.
Jesus, flying all over the place.
Sorry.
I haven't seen you on set.
You know, before I introduce this bye week board, I actually want Mike to get out some pointers.
All right, well, first name that I want to talk about on the waiver wires right now is Alex Smith, QB from San Francisco. A lot of people have been down on him throughout his career, but this season under Jim Harbaugh's management, he's turning into a game manager. He's turning into a quarterback who won't blow the game for you anymore. A quarterback who will rely on his running game and defense to win games. But when it comes down to it, he can make that big play to one of his big play receivers in Vernon Davis or Frank Gore, or an up-and-coming receiver in Josh Morgan, or an up-and-coming running back in Kendall Hunter. Alex Smith, last week, 11 of 19, 170 yards. Not impressive numbers, but 3 TDs against a good young defense in Tampa Bay.
I actually want to cut it. We talked about Alex Smith last week, and you said he was a fraud. And right now, I'm going to agree with you on that, actually. I think Alex Smith had a great game, but should you pick him up? Not yet. And from there, I'd like to mention a guy, actually, that I think that people should really start considering. And I wasn't sold on him quite yet, but Curtis Painter is a guy that I think you should actually take a look at before Alex Smith, because Alex Smith is the starter in San Francisco, but that one game where San Francisco just blew up out of nowhere randomly, I'm not sold on that. Curtis Painter has had a couple of weeks now where he's actually had good performance. Like right now, he's already put up 14 for 618 total yards, and he's just a guy that I think is a better pickup than Alex Smith.
I personally think that Painter, Noah Smith are going to make a huge splash in fantasy this year. I think Painter's being successful a lot to do with his receivers. He hasn't really faced an elite defense yet. When he does, I think he'll fail. Alex Smith, he put up a great game, but he hasn't been consistent enough in his whole career as an NFL professional, enough for me to warrant a pick during the waiver wire. One of my waiver wire pickups, and a guy who I think can definitely come and potentially take your number 2 or flex wide receiver position in your fantasy team is Victor Cruz from the New York Giants. I mean, I'm going to read off here. The last 3 weeks, he has 369 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he's a big play threat. Now, I know we all remember, if you don't know him now, you might remember him with the whole, did he get up and fumble? Did he get up? That whole play where the refs had to review it. Was the receiver down? Did he fumble? Went the Giants' way, but it was a fumble. I think he's definitely come, the way he's playing, can come and take your number 2 position spot. If he hasn't been picked up yet, I've been fortunate enough to pick him up. If he hasn't been picked up yet, jump on it, because there's a lot of receivers underperforming right now, and they can definitely take those spots. And by the season's end, he might be Eli Manning's favorite target.
Another receiver that I like personally, though, that has had a pretty solid couple of weeks now is Darius Hayward-Bay. Jeff, you had mentioned earlier that Al Davis drafted him early in the first round. He got a lot of criticism for it, and up until last week, Hayward hasn't lived up to the hype. But last week he had 4 catches for 115 yards, and this week he had 7 catches for 99 yards and a TD. Campbell and him have a great chemistry over the past 2 weeks. Oakland is showing that they can go vertical in the passing game and that they can do more than just rely on Darren McFadden. So going forward, I think he's going to be a great number 3 receiver on your team, possibly a number 2, depending on the rest of the season and if he stays healthy. But I think he's another name that if he's available, you put in for him now, pick him up in case an injury happens, like an Andre Johnson. No one knows what his status is. If he's on your team and you need another receiver, Hayward-Bay is your man.
Actually, because Danny Amendola is on the IR, the guy I want to mention is Jayare Alexander. And a lot of people aren't sold on him. I mean, he really hasn't been putting up great stats. He has 8 receptions for, so far, 196 yards and a touchdown. But now that Danny Amendola is gone, Sam Bradford has to rely on someone. And this could be the guy, this guy could be the guy that Sam Bradford relies on. I'm not saying the Rams are going to be a great team. Far from it. As a matter of fact, I think the Rams are just a wash. You know, you just take this beer and dump it out. That's a wash. But no,
Don't do that.
That's not good. No, that's not good. That's not good to wash out beer. But my point is, the St. Louis Rams right now, don't expect them to win games yet. But Sam Bradford, he can still throw. Jayare Alexander, watch out for him.
Testify, my friends. Testify.
The only thing Jayare Alexander has going for him is that the Rams are going to be playing from behind all of their games, and they're going to be forced to chuck it up in the air. And Sims Walker and Alexander are the only 2 guys doing anything. I mean, Steven Jackson got hurt, and he hasn't had a good game since. So, and playing from behind, you might get those lucky games where Alexander might go for 100 yards, a touchdown or 2. Is he still worth anything in fantasy? In my opinion, no.
You can't expect consistency from anybody on the waiver wire right now. You can't expect week in, week out that Steve Preston is going to put up.
I'm going to have to disagree with that, and I'm going to go back to last week, and I'm going to give a big "I told you so" to Steve Preston. Now, the Chiefs, as we know, are on bye week. They're on bye week. Yeah, I told you so. They're on a bye week. But you have to look at the certain situations and certain teams. Now, most of the waiver wire pickups, for sure, they're not going to be worth anything in the long run. They might be a quick fix because your star player is out, injury, bye week, whatever the situation may be. But you got a guy like Preston who's on a team with, I mean, one of the best players in the NFL, and Jamal Charles is out. He's out now. Yeah. He's out. And so you gotta come up on the fly with an offense. So you don't want to tank the team.
There goes my fantasy league.
Mine. Well, I won't get into my team. I think I made a few good moves. But anyway, Preston, 2 touchdowns this past week. But you gotta look at the situation. Matt Castle. We were talking about quarterbacks. Kind of set my mind to talk about this guy. Matt Castle. We got into an argument with his coach last week. They gone through a shoving match. He responded 4 touchdowns this week to Preston. If you have room on your roster, definitely pick him up. But it's going to be another I told you so. I'm telling you, this Jackie battle.
Yes.
This is the new segment.
Thank you. I wanted to mention.
No, talking about this is the new segment. The I told you so featuring Devin.
I told you so.
I told you so segment.
I just want to say,
Bad Mike
I'm looking at this guy's stats for 1 game, 15. And you can judge this by points per reception or whatever. But from what I'm looking at in the CBS leagues, 15 fantasy points, 156 yards, no touchdowns, but it's clearly evident that Jackie Battle could become a threat to Thomas Jones' production.
He could be the next Peyton Hillis, come in a situation, everything's right, and then you show your stuff, and all of a sudden you're stuck.
So, with that being said, I want to talk about the home team versus Tony Romo and the ugly Cowboys that you always hype every year at ESPN. fan, and it gets you nowhere. First of all, stop hyping the Cowboys up. They are not America's team. In all honesty, right now, I think the Pats, for a few years, have been America's team. I don't think this is going to be quite a bounce-back game for the Cowboys, but I think the Cowboys right now, getting off the bye week, they have something to prove, guys. They really do. The Pats, this is not a must win for them, but this is a good win to take home with them, to just have bragging rights that, yeah, we're still better than the Cowboys. But in terms of this game, I think that the Pats should win this. I don't see no reason why Detroit can get in the second half 3 picks. I don't see why the Pats cannot come in. Devin McCourty does his job that he's supposed to, whatever his job at the moment is, which I'm kind of debating is cornerback and safety. But Pats come in, they do their job, the defensive line shows up, everyone shows up, Pats win the game, Brady gets the throw and everything. Quickly to the next game I want to talk about, I'm calling this the battle for New York supremacy. Buffalo and the New York Giants. And guys, the way that Buffalo is riding right now, I think they're a non-stop team. They keep preaching the fact that they're not satisfied with the amount of wins they're getting. They're not satisfied with winning the game. So I think they're going to come in. I think they're going to play the hardest that they always play. I think they're going to take it from the Giants. And I don't think the Giants got it. I forgot to mention the scores for these 2 games that I mentioned. For the Pats Cowboys, I believe that the score is going to be 31-17 Patriots. And for the battle of New York supremacy, I think the Buffalo Bills take it 31-20.
Another matchup that I'm looking forward to this upcoming week is going to be the Niners against the Lions. Now, the Niners are 4-1. They lead their division. Jim Harbaugh, like I said earlier, has brought a winning mentality back to that organization that has been missing since Steve Young and Jerry Rice were bringing them to Super Bowl titles. They do have a tough matchup this week. The Lions obviously have Megatron, who you can't guard with 2 people, you can't guard with 3 people. So it's going to be a very tough matchup for the Niners. But they do have Patrick Willis. They do have a very good, productive defensive line that can get pressure on the QB, and they have a young QB in Alex Smith who has been inconsistent, but this season has a 72% completion percentage. They have a healthy Frank Gore. The Niners are going to come out and they're going to stun the Lions in my upset pick of the week. Another matchup that I want to talk about, I actually think is the matchup of the week. You got the Baltimore Ravens going up against the Houston Texans. Now, the Baltimore Ravens have one of the best defenses in the league, maybe of all time. They already have 6 returns for touchdowns in that defense, led by Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, and Terrell Suggs. Offensively, last week they struggled. Joe Flacco was exposed for not being the elite QB that a lot of people thought going into the season he would become. I think the Ravens are going to be coming out on top behind Ray Rice, and their defense are going to come out with a 21-13 win, and the Niners are going to win 24-17 over the Lions.
We're going to talk about the Atlanta Falcons versus the Carolina Panthers now. The Atlanta Falcons, you got a team who's coming off a good season last season. Matt Ryan, of course, being one of the hardest talked about quarterbacks having last season. Roddy White, the addition of Julio Jones. But like we saw last week, Julio Jones was hurt. Usually when a wide receiver comes off the field and holds a hamstring and doesn't come back, it's a bad sign. And the Falcons need Julio Jones to open up the middle for that old guy named Tony Gonzalez. Open up the middle for the running game. And without that, they're going to suffer. Not only that, Cam Newton is a big physical quarterback. We all agree with that?
Yes. We all agree.
Aaron Rodgers, big physical quarterback. Now, am I saying Cam Newton equals Aaron Rodgers? No. But I think he'll keep improving his performance. And I see Carolina beating the Falcons 24-17. Cam Newton having one of his better games so far this season. The second game is going to be Philly versus Washington. Now Philly's in a must-win situation, absolutely must-win situation. I feel Andy Reid might not be a championship coach, but he's a damn good coach. And you got players who are cream of the crop at their position, statistically speaking, and Vic and McCoy and Sean Jackson. go down the list offensively, I think they're too good of a team. They're not the dream team. They're too good of a team not to at least make things interesting. I feel they beat the Redskins, and I say they start some sort of a rally. Do I think they're a playoff team? Right now, I'm going to say no. I think that the Eagles win that divisional game 30-27 in a shootout with Vic performing very well.
Do you think it might be possibly a lack of communication or chemistry? He's not good players.
I think pressure was put, way too much pressure was put on them when they self-proclaimed themselves a dream team. I think too many egos in the locker room. Too many egos in the locker room. And it's the point of the defense not being beefy enough.
It's back to football. That's what we're talking about right now.
Football. But anyway, that's our big segment. And next up, we have a Smack Talk segment.
And
we'll be right back.
And I will talk about something Mr. JR said in the Smack Talk section.
Oh my God! I can't wait for this.
Get all the gorgeous stuff out. This is Smack Talk session. This is when all the gorgeousness goes out the window and you start talking. Jeffrey, you start firing off.
I want to go back to early in today's show. Mr. JR, they was talking about the Cowboys and the Patriots game coming on next weekend. Now,
It's about to go down. Here it is.
I'm a Patriots fan. I want to tell you guys first and foremost, but Mr. JR came off with a comment about, well, since the Lions could come and make 3 interceptions in the second half against the Cowboys, I don't stop right there. The Lions are ranked pretty well right now in defense. The Patriots are not. The Patriots are not known for doing anything defensively. I mean, when Vince Wilfork at one point is tied for the most interceptions on your team, and we all know who Vince Wilfork is.
Yeah!
We all know Vince Wilfork. How are you going to compare that to the Lions when you have linebackers and defensive backfields making plays for your defense?
All right.
And the Lions have a pass rush. We do have a pass rush. It's not in terms of the Lions yet first. Now let me back that up for a second, since John thinks that the Patriots defense is going to come and intercept Tony Romo and company a whole bunch of times, which is not going to happen. What's going to happen is the new age of not just the Patriots, it's football. You got Tom Brady with all these offensive weapons, and you got the defense. Doesn't have a bunch of playmakers, but has a bunch of solid football players. Can make the tackle, but once in a while give up a big play, but not give up the biggest play, which is the game-winning play, which explains why they're in the position where they are now. But hey, you guys can pay attention to me.
I am paying attention. Believe me, I'm listening to every word you're saying.
So this is a direct commentary to John, to JR, by the way. Now, here we got a defense who just lost its star player. And you're expecting them to march in, or have the Cowboys march into our territory and pick the ball off.
I didn't say that.
You told us, since the Lions could, that right there, you threw the Pats defense against the Lions defense, just with those small remarks. Since the Lions could, no, we don't play that type of math here at Extreme Football Junkies. You gotta look at reality.
You know what? No.
You can't play that. They beat them.
No. What I said.
They beat them. Let me
repeat what I said first of all. What I said, as I remember,
That's not what I said.
is that in that game against the Detroit Lions and Cowboys, the Lions, not the Cowboys, the Lions picked off Tony Romo 3 times. And what my fellow colleague just said was that he was saying that I was expecting that the Cowboys were going to pick off. From what I was gathering from what you were saying, I'm sure you meant
No.
the
He was
Pats.
saying the Pats could duplicate what the Lions did.
All right.
And the Pats have shown no trace of that this season yet. They've been to offensive.
And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. No. Let me tell you why. First of all,
Relax.
I promise I'll let you get it. But
speak, and then I want Michael to speak.
All right.
I want to.
I'll let you finish. I'll let you
I want to
finish.
finish my original.
Do it.
Everyone.
I won't ramble on. But what I will say is this: the Patriots, Belichick has realized that the NFL is moving towards a passive-friendly league. There's going to be more penalties being called against the defensive backs. There's going to be more penalties called for roughing the passer, hits to the head, and protecting the quarterbacks, and protecting the defensive receivers in the NFL. So, in answer to that, Belichick has stopped getting stout defenses. They no longer have the Rodney Harrisons. They no longer have leading the league in turnovers and being close to it. They don't even have the sack monsters which they should have.
Yeah.
They have that defense that's not going to break, and they're beating you with their offense and having a good enough defense. You don't have to have the best defense to win a Super Bowl. If you have Tom Brady as your quarterback, Bill Belichick as your coach, and that type of offensive line.
I understand all of that. No, I understand what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with you. I do believe that Pats in the past are not living in the past, where they had Troy Brown, Teddy Bruschi, whose jersey I'm obviously wearing.
It was a different league.
It was a much different league back then. In the past, and you know what? The Pats, they succeeded in that league, and they're moving forward. I understand that. But what I'm saying is, and I'm in favor with you that the Pats are going to win this game. I'm totally in favor with you with it. But what I was trying to say for that game in particular, the Cowboys, they're coming off a bye, which is good for them. In general, guys, it's good for them. But the other thing you have to remember is, every year, this team is hyped up as being the best team in the league, as if we're all supposed to sit there and stare in awe as Des Bryant, Miles Austin, Jason Witten and crew come in. And by the way, may I mention that Felix Jones has not been an impact at all fantasy-wise. But getting back to the point,
you guys, I want to see Michael speak. He's been very conservative.
You guys seem to be ignoring one major key to this game. They're going up against Tony Romo, one of the most inconsistent QBs in the game. The Lions have a good defense. They're not the Ravens. You put any pressure on Romo, and he's going to make the mistake. League, hands down. Wes Welker has turned into not only possession receiver, but this guy is stretching the field on a week-to-week basis against some of the best DBs in the league. Granted, Calvin Johnson is a monster. He's a freakish athlete. But what Wes Welker can do is he can single-handedly, besides just what he gives you touchdown-wise, he can control the momentum of a game. He can give you a long 8-minute, 9-minute drive in the fourth quarter to win a game, which is key. He can come up with that third and fourth catch, that third and fifth catch, which in my opinion is more clutch than a 25-yard touchdown at the end of a half.
No, I totally, and I even wrote this. Wes Welker, and I'm going off stats alone, okay? But the way you're putting Wes Welker in this picture is just too broad. I mean, how are you determining this? Are you determining this over a regular season without fantasy and importance, or are you?
I'm basing this off of stats right now.
Stats right now, okay.
He has more receptions.
All right.
He doesn't have as many TDs, but he's up there with Calvin, and he has more yards.
But I have to say this much about Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson right now, by far, Welker is so he's not as underrated this year as he was like last year or the year before, but he's still that underrated that Calvin Johnson, more people, first off, will proclaim that Calvin Johnson is the best receiver in the game, and they may go strictly off of just highlights. If you watch highlights that Calvin Johnson made, he's made ESPN primetime highlights. But getting aside from that, all of that, I do agree partially that Wes Welker is the best receiver in the league. He's getting more looks than Calvin Johnson is. But over time, I think honestly, Calvin Johnson will be by far #1 receiver in the league. And not in yards, but in touchdowns.
This is a deciding factor. You have to think about who's throwing them the ball. The reason why Welker is so good.
Thank you.
Now, you have to question, if you put Wes Welker on the Detroit Lions,
Right.
and if you put Calvin Johnson on the Patriots,
Exactly.
do the math.
Exactly.
Calvin Johnson, to me,
It's like-
is the best wide receiver in the game, but right now, at this point of the season, who's the most valuable to his team? Wes Welker, because there's no other options to throw to other than the tight end.
But
Wes Welker is
going on
turning
that.
into the deep threat. That was the only aspect of his game that wasn't comparable to an Andre Johnson or Calvin Johnson. But this season, he's going deep. He's making the big plays downfield. So he's becoming a full circle wide receiver. He does
But-
everything.
No.
And Calvin Johnson
No.
is the sexier name. He has the highlight plays. But that shouldn't take away from what Wes Welker's doing.
That's like a marketability.
Here's the big,
By the way, I appreciate that.
Yeah, that was nice.
I appreciate
I
that.
like
Was
the
a loser.
artwork.
All of a sudden it comes to a war.
You can't stress enough the quarterbacks when it comes to talking about wide receivers, but also I feel it's almost unfair to compare those two wide receivers because I mean Wes Welker is a slot receiver.
Yes.
I guess I can kind of say the jury's still kind of out on this debate. Can Wes Welker all of a sudden transform into a number one receiver? Because I saw a few plays where he didn't have he's quick, he's not fast. He
And
didn't have the
there's
speed
another
to
factor
catch up to a few balls.
There's a huge difference also to Wes Welker and Calvin Johnson. And I was saying this last year to certain people. I know I was saying this to you about Danny Woodhead and Wes Welker. The thing is, my theory for shorter people who are receiving in the league or running in the league, it's harder to catch them because they are shorter. They can get the routes better. The ability is there.
Go down the list.
I mean,
but
come on.
I just,
if you're 6'5", it's harder to guard you.
But
What's the point? You can say the same thing
I want to
for
touch
Calvin
on
Johnson.
I want to touch on his point though.
Okay.
He actually brought up a very valid point. The thing you have to remember is if you put Wes Welker in the wide receiver spot, the wide receiver spot, where Calvin, no, not the slot, the spot that Calvin Johnson would be at normally.
Like you mean if you switch the
As a wide receiver, not specifically a slot receiver, Ocho Cinco Jr. Because that's his job as a wide receiver. And Calvin Johnson as a wide receiver, not a slot receiver, because I can guarantee that Calvin Johnson, as I think he might be the best wide receiver in fantasy this year, I can say this much, Calvin Johnson in the slot position could do just as much damage as Wes Welker.
It would be a waste of talent.
It would.
A guy like Calvin Johnson who's outrunning everybody,
And he had
out-jumping
3
everybody.
receivers on him. Wes Welker hasn't had a play like that.
And he won't. He's not that type of receiver.
Right, exactly.
Wes Welker
No,
is
he won't because there's enough options around him. Well, you can't focus.
I don't think Wes Welker is going to physically beat most of the corners in the league. What's going to beat the corners when you're Wes Welker is his quickness, his shiftiness, his in-tuneness with who? Tom Brady. On the same page, football smart, always gets to the open space, quick little shifty moves that got the Reeves a bunch of times. I mean, kudos to Deion
One of the
Branch.
best DBs
On this game, Deion Branch,
Deion Branch,
Deion Branch, good job. Really.
Welker
And that says a lot about
outfielder.
Welker. Because Revis Island
Welker
for a
and
reason.
Deion Branch.
That shutdown corner.
But if you put Welker on the outside versus a dominant cornerback where you're going to be not running the slot routes, little shifty routes where the quarterback's going to look at you and say, post down to the end zone, I need you, and you're going to have to pass through your corner, support and safety, and possibly another safety dropping back into coverage. Would Welker be that good? It's like I said, Welker is quick, which is very key for the slot position. He is not fast. He doesn't have the breakaway speed. He can beat you to the first step. But if you're an athlete, you can definitely cover Wes Welker down the field stretching. A lot of his big plays downfield have been plays drawn up by offensive coordinators, misdirections. Maybe it could be fake screen and Welker snakes himself out there. It could be send Ocho deep, make Branch go post, and that opens up the left corner. I mean, there's a lot of different things that happen. But I mean, I think right now my final opinion on the matter is, this is my final opinion, is that it's too early, and it really depends on what kind of team you have. If you're the Patriots and you run on possession and you run on preciseness, you want Welker. And if you're a team on the Detroit Lions and you want to put up points, you want to not only put up points, you need fans. You need fans. You need fans. You need fans on the stands. You got guys like Calvin Johnson. Come on, freak athletes. You throw the ball up to him against anybody. 2 or 3 of them, he's going to come down with the ball. Dallas needs the big plays. The Patriots need the sturdiness, and that's why you have that debate. Who's more important to the team? Right now, Wes Welker is more important to the Patriots because without Welker, there is no Patriots offense through the year.
I love how it comes all full circle. Getting in the snack talk.
Always.
So, another great episode of Extreme Fantasy Junkies, I believe.
Hope you guys enjoyed it.
Before we get going, like I said, we already did our moment of silence, but Al Davis, God bless, thank you, Steve Jobs. Thank you for my
Cheers to you
smartphone,
guys.
my iPod.
Steve Jobs revolutionized the technology.
And before we get going, Bruce.
Another round of applause.
Thank you.
Jeffrey, thank you. Jeff, I didn't speak loud. Jeff, thank you. Michael, thank you. JR.
Great job.
Thank
Mad
you.
Mike, I know
Thank
today
you,
I've been
Mad Mike.
But
Thank
before we
you.
go, most importantly though, you can follow us on Twitter at Extreme Fantasy Junkies and like us on Facebook, / because some people don't think, / Extreme Fantasy Junkies, or you can just go on the YouTube channel, Extreme Fantasy Junkies, and I will see you later.
Later, guys.
Yep.
See you next week.